What can we really learn from a reserve study? Not just the theory, but real-world outcomes. Every association faces the reality of aging components, limited resources, and the challenge of making decisions today that will impact owners for years to come. In this case studies webinar, we step beyond concepts and dive into 4 actual examples, showing how different associations approach their reserve planning, the decisions they made, and the results that followed. When you see how others have navigated these challenges, it becomes much easier to chart your own path forward. In this first section, we'll start with a little 21-unit suburban townhome we're appropriately calling Garage Door Villas. Watch and see what we learned from their real-world behaviors.
Well, thank you, Kali, and hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. And today we're going to be talking about case studies of successful reserve planning. And this was one of those programs that we created in response to you asking, well, what does it look like for associations to do their reserve planning? What have you learned from it? What can we learn from it? And so this is a program. We're going to have 4 different case studies. We've changed the name, as Kali mentioned, and it is indeed a little bit of following the client through the years. Sometimes it's nurturing the client. Sometimes it's correcting the client because, as you imagine, board members change. And the opinions you shared about, are you aligned with the reserve study provider? You may feel one way, and your board members in a few years may have a different understanding or different set of priorities. And so things change at an association over the years. It may be the same roof, but it may be lead, or the budget for that roof, the purse strings may be held by a number of different boards through the years. So I'm going to walk you through a number of different case studies and show you a few things that you can pick up, hopefully to help you run your association a little more smoothly. And as I go through these case studies, I'll reference a few different things. Percent funded is the strength of the reserve fund. It's the comparison of reserve cash, how much you have, to the deterioration at the association. So it's a matter of, do you have enough cash to do the projects that you need to accomplish? So that's percent funded. Deterioration rate is the rate at which your assets are deteriorating. And that's independent of your funding. That's a number that tells you how much you need to be setting aside to keep up with the ongoing deterioration. And then the funding plan, I'll reference that. What are we going to recommend to the association? What remediation, if it was a doctor, what is the prescription they're going to give to you to get you safely and successfully into the future? So let's start with first one first, Garage Door Villas. And to introduce the association, it's a 21-unit suburban townhome, 3 buildings, 34 years old. We've done their reserve study 13 times now over the years. So as you're thinking about this, you're thinking, okay, not too big of a place, just 3 buildings, 34 years old. So they've been around. Maybe they're on their 2nd, maybe approaching their 3rd roof. You can kind of visualize what they have there. The issue here, you don't see. They have some very expensive common area assets, and I'll show you that. But politically and in control, they have one dominant board member. This board member has been in a position of power for a number of years. And I think many of you know what it's like to have a board member that is almost to the point of being a bully. But this one dominant board member has focused on lowering reserve obligations. We have scuffled with each other over the years. Interestingly, they keep hiring us, and we keep telling them what we believe to be the truth, what we see there about their roof, what we see about their asphalt, what we see about all their other things, and what we know about what current costs are in the market. And current costs are a whole lot higher now than they were a few years ago. Anyway, this dominant board member wants to lower reserve obligations to increase their percent funded. And his primary rallying point has been he wants to remove the garage doors from the reserve study. I hear him, but garage doors are common area according to the governing documents. And we've always stood firm that the garage doors stay in. They pass the 3-part test for what a reserve component is. So we just did their most recent reserve study, and we learned something about them. And let me click over to our UPlanet software. It's our online reserve calculator. And this is the kind of view that a portfolio manager would get, listing all their properties. And I've set it up with our cases here for today. I'll click on Garage Door Villas, and you can see that we've done a number of reserve studies for them. And let's click over You Planet to see their assets. And this case was one that I was sensitive to because of the garage door issue. It used to be my client, and I've moved on and turned this over to another employee. And I saw garage doors as not funded. And I checked with the project manager on this one. I wanted to make sure that we were not being bullied. And the project manager said, oh, they just updated their governing documents. They amended their governing documents, and garage doors are now personal responsibility of each owner. I was like, wow. Okay, well, good for you to follow the governing documents. And interesting that this board president felt so strongly about it that they amended their governing documents. So let me show you a little bit what this means to their association. We'll click over to the recommendations page, and you can see that in their attempt to lower their costs by decreasing garage door expenses and increase their percent funded by one less thing to pay for, and you can see the garage doors here in the picture, they have lost sight of their overall objective. And their overall objective is to run a strong association with cash enough to do what they need to do. I'm going to click over here to tables and charts and show you the component significance. It's basically the cost of a component divided by the useful life. That's their average deterioration cost per year. Sum that all up, and for this place, it's about $84,500 per year. I'm writing that down, 84,448. Okay. Now, notice they have been budgeting their reserve funding at just under $3,000 per month. And to make the numbers easy, let's call that $36,000 a year. So you can see that they've been significantly underfunding reserves these last few years. And that has a consequence. That consequence is exactly why they are only 13% funded at this time. So I take a deep breath there because this kind of hurts. And let's go over to components and see what really they've accomplished. Let's go to building exteriors. Let's edit the garage door line item. And for argument's sake, let's restore the garage door line item. Let's turn the funding on to yes. Let's call it a 15-year component. And let's, for argument's sake, just say it's 5 years left. And we were budgeting garage doors at $1,800 a piece times 21 garage doors is 37,800. And so let's restore garage doors. Bingo, they're back into the reserve study. Let's take a look. With garage doors in, you've seen that they don't quite achieve 100% funding with this funding plan. It's going to take a little more cash. Well, how much more cash, you might say? Let's go to component significance. Scroll down to building exteriors, 702 garage doors, and it's about $2,520 per year. I don't know how much it costs to amend their governing documents. I'm guessing $10,000 to $20,000, but all that to save $2,520 per year. And the question is, did they really save anything? Because the garage doors are still there. They're still getting old. They still need to be replaced. Yet instead of each owner getting it done for $1,800 through their reserve fund, now each owner is going to have to take the time to find a garage door installation company, schedule that installation, make sure that the garage door complies with architectural standards, and those one-at-a-time projects are probably going to cost about $2,500 a piece. So it's going to be more expensive than if they would have got it done in economies of scale, all 21 at the same time. And in the meantime, there's going to be some new garage doors and some old garage doors, and so it's going to look what we call checkerboarded. It's not going to have a nice, clean look. So this property was focusing on one little battle that they wanted to fight, and they lost track of their overall objective to fund what needed to be funded. And so I'm going to click back to the PowerPoint here, and let's look at lessons learned. Okay, lessons learned is keep your eye on the ball. Don't major in the minors. We're talking about just garage doors here. They still need to be replaced. Yes, you may have slightly reduced your reserve funding obligation by eliminating them, but they're still deteriorating and they're still going to need to be replaced. Now they're going to be more expensive to each of those 21 homeowners when they do them by themselves. And my son is a Navy fighter pilot, and he tells me when they do their dogfighting exercises, the rule is lose sight, lose the fight. And I think this association here, we've been working with them through the years. They've been so distracted on their own personal agenda that they are losing sight of what their main responsibility is. So this year, we had to recommend a special assessment and significantly higher reserve funding than what they have been doing, because we need to guide them forward successfully. And so that's been an interesting situation with what we call Garage Door Villas.
At Association Reserves, we make the present less stressful and the future more secure. If you'd like to join us in that mission, please like this video and subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment down below with what you'd like to see in a future webinar. Let's plan for your best future.